Xanadu, Babylon, the ISS, the rest of you. Yeah, old habits die hard, don't they? Well, if you're just joining us, it is 1 a.m. on the East Coast, 8 a.m. in Kiev, 9 a.m. in Moscow, and 10 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast. So you're just settling down. A lot of headlines to regurgitate, a lot of chatter on the internet regarding a nuclear accident, a lot of details to give you there. There's a lot of hype of that, and some interesting data points to share. Equally, the phone call between President Zelensky and President Biden. We have the not so stunning revelations regarding the negotiations of China and Russia when it came to the 2022 Winter Olympics and the timeline for the invasion. We are also now receiving very public words from China. China, by the way, was not mentioned in the State of the Union address, but in this case, the Chinese have now made a statement publicly regarding this saber rattling in the West that if Taiwan is China's problem, and if anybody's going to start meddling, well, there's going to be problems. So that is significant because the continued calls for condemnation, sanctions, now bringing up all of the children, demanding a safe space and a no fly zone. The minute you call for a no fly zone, you are inviting a world war. Multiple countries will have to defend. There will be, not if, there will be shots fired. A pilot will be downed and or killed. At the moment a shot's fired in the no-fly zone, that's supposed to be a declaration of war, not a condemnation and another vote by the European allies and the dignitaries. Meanwhile, the attacks continue on the Russian oligarchs. No one is talking about the Western oligarchs, the European oligarchs, the African oligarchs, the South American oligarchs, or the North American oligarchs. So I thought we'd cover some of that tonight in the data points. Meanwhile, as suspicious as I was reporting on the accounts and what is supposedly credible regarding the ghost of the Ukraine, well, it turns out the ghost was just that, smoke and mirrors. Just as was the smoke and mirrors of the Ukrainian soldiers who died at the hands of Mother Russia's mighty army when asked to surrender their island, they said, ew. None of it happened. So I bring up that because of the video footage that now many of you are seeing being repeated ad nauseum on your various media outlets regarding this attack on a a Ukrainian nuclear facility. Plant Zaporizhzhia. Now, I hope I said that right. Zaporizhzhia. It is a plant outside the town of Enerhodar, Ukraine. The fire was either in a training building or an admin building. But the video stream from this particular nuclear facility is not a stream that runs normally. So if you actually source their YouTube page and then go and see, well, wait a minute. Now, there is an argument that this stream was put up a few hours because it ran for 4 hours, but then there's only 12 minutes of the cut. All right, let's walk through this together. They've been on a heightened state of alert everywhere. What if local intel said the army's getting close? We may want to stream just in case we get shelled. Because shelling's been going on. This wasn't bombing. This certainly wasn't a targeted bomb. Shelling in one area and a rogue shell. It happens. However, Ukraine is 50% nuclear power. I believe it's 49. So understanding the difference between going after a military target, a civilian target, an industrial plant, communications, command and control, water facilities. Because now, with the alerts and the alleged attacks of others, and alleged, and here it comes, out of the abundance of caution, we are shutting down. Well, they're already, the people of Ukraine in many cities, not getting heat, not getting electricity because of the artillery. Now you're going to put the system further on overload in your abundance of caution nonsense. Lindsey, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Lindsey Graham, vocal on Twitter tonight, headlines for ending 3-3, now 3-4 2022. Lindsey Graham now on his Twitter feed openly calling for the assassination of Vladimir Putin. What happened in the last 24 hours, 23 hours to escalate all of this? The continued push by the media in the West that this convoy is just sitting there. Further indications of massive logistical problems. Now, are these logistical problems because the Russian army didn't foresee the duration? Or is because the acts of sabotage and the acts of saboteurs conducting sabotage and the sheer number of Russians who are now realizing they were lied to in a propaganda war to get there? Just as the Ukrainians, many are now realizing the propaganda that was spewed to them about the Russians. Wait a minute. And while they stand in a food line with the money they do have, because the ATMs are now out of money, the product is the smartphone. No, you're the product. You're the product. But, soda. But, what is interesting here, the argument of communications. Everyone jumped on the story of Elon Musk got Starlink over there. Nobody wanted to cover it was going to take time and logistics to get the receivers there. And when talking about logistics and supply chain issues, when push comes to shove, those dishes showed up real fast. But then the media, well, now that they've got Starlink, how is this helping with their, or what is this constant need to tell what we are going to do? That's not the art of war. Now, back to this nuclear power plant and the other power plants that provide 49 or roughly 50% of Ukraine's power and elsewhere, because the grid and the share and how they do that. You know, like oil pipelines and water pipelines and gas pipelines and railways. Start thinking. The United States, many regions in the United States suddenly seeing a 40 and 45 cent per gallon jump in just the last 24 hours. After 48 hours ago, the State of the Union address, where President Biden assured America that the call and the use of 60 million barrels of oil, 60 million barrels of oil, was going to drop the price. America needs to immediately demand that their state governors immediately discontinue the state gas taxes, and the federal government needs to immediately eliminate the national gas sales. It's got to stop. They're doing nothing else. They won't increase production. As the price continues to soar, the government's getting their cut. So as they direct your attention to the fact that the Russians are suffering, and hopefully they'll suffer enough to make him go away, it's time that you alert your representatives, the ones who represent you, End your state gas taxes immediately and repeal the national gas taxes immediately. Immediately. It can be done with the stroke of a pen on Friday. Take out the trash news. Because the European Union is taking Vladimir Zelensky very seriously. This phone call allegedly between President Biden and President Zelensky discussing the situation at the nuclear facility that allegedly took shelling, that allegedly was on fire, reports of concerns of an apocalyptic meltdown and a Chernobyl-like event, fears and concerns. Well, that's repeaters repeating what they're seeing on social media. That is not what's going through the intelligence channels right now. And those intelligence channels would include the IAEA. By the way, if there is a nuclear event, the government isn't going to tell us first. It's going to be a neighboring country, just like Chernobyl when they said everything was fine, just like Fukushima when they said everything was fine. Neighboring countries are going to go, hey, wait a minute, we got an alert. But here in the United States, you may want to check because I believe so many of our radiation detectors from New York to Los Angeles to Seattle to Miami, from Norfolk, Virginia to even Denver, Colorado, you paid for all of that technology. You've been paying for it to the whole. Ooh, you might want to check and see if it still works. I wish I were making this up. Hyping now the fear of nuclear Armageddon. In a recent poll, 50% of kids to the age of 29, 50% don't believe, they believe they'll see the end of the world in their time. The end of the world in their time. Something is still prohibiting the convoy from moving, I think. But again, it's a classic stall tactic. Because even people like Sean Hannity, well, the world can see them there. Maybe someone should just attack it. It's perfect bait. It's not doing anything. But why is it not doing anything? They're still showing the initial satellite photos. The satellites can be moved. The drones can be moved. Aerial reconnaissance, a different angle. What's going on? Showing that same picture for the entire week is now very suspicious. Back to the plant. When the Daiichi nuclear power facility was hit after the earthquake by a volcano and there was a catastrophic failure at the Daiichi nuclear power facility, even Fox News was caught red-handed. Almost 2 full days, they were showing file footage of Daiichi and not a live footage. Had they been showing live footage, they would have seen the roof off and the expelled. We got all that video later. The media in the West, CNN, they were all lying. They were minimizing. You know, until the Japanese people came out and were crying in shame because they've caused quite possibly the worst man-made disaster in human history. And then asked the guys in Japan, when they asked NASA, hey, can we borrow the blueprints or the NASA suits that protected the astronauts in space from the radiation? We already told we went with this with Chernobyl. We told them that, and we tell you the same. We don't have them. We don't know how to make them. We lost the blueprints. We don't know. You're on your own. The stream from YouTube is from the facility. That's who, that's who claims that channel is. They don't stream every day. Why did they suddenly start streaming? What appears to be a flare for a period of time dropping was that to mark the target. Other social media reports in the Ukraine alleging they were at other nuclear facilities and they're shelling us to death. They're blowing everything up. And the Western media is running with that. Reports of, no, you read that on somebody's TikTok channel, and TikTok, Telegram, Clubhouse, Twitter, Facebook, All suspicious unless you know the source. This nonsense of government and corporations telling you what source to trust. You need to know what sources to trust. Don't believe a word I'm saying. All of the links of the data points I'm talking about tonight are on my Twitter feed, the Scooter McGee. I'm Scooter McGee on Facebook. I'm Scooter McGee here on YouTube. And if you wish to support the show, you can go to Scooter McGee on Patreon. Please like the videos I do. Please share them. And please leave your comments. Kherson, allegedly the first city to fail, reported by ABC and CNN. Kherson is still fighting, although getting heavily shelled and under attack and having problems with looters and the Russian army taking what they want. You can't claim the city has fallen because nobody's in power. Nobody's in charge. Russia has the city when they control the streets, control the people, put in a temporary government, have policing. That's not what we're seeing. So that's an absolutely irresponsible talking point for the overnight mainstream media to be running again tonight. This nonsense of the children being taken to the underground bunkers in the hospitals and the subway system to get their chemotherapy treatments. This is nonsense. Unconfirmed attacks, unconfirmed reports that the city of Odessa, the port in the south on the Black Sea, was under attack and was about to be overtaken by Russian forces. Latest satellite images don't show that. However, in taking Odessa and the Black Sea, with the now agreement with Ukraine and Belarus, remember up there in the Baltic is that small portion of Russia. So if Russia can take Ukraine to the east, take central Ukraine to the back west to the river, and then just extend that border up to Belarus, Belarus to the Black Sea, and then the Sea of the Black Sea to the south and the Baltic Sea to the north. I'm used to my map and the green screen. How you doing back there? You know, they're really demonizing. I thought I took a ton of crap. You're really getting pissed on. You should be mad. Second round of peace talks were unsuccessful in bringing Vladimir Putin to the table to discuss peace. And obviously, with the continued shelling and the bombing and the shooting and the dying, peace is not at hand, and a ceasefire has not been called. However, again, regarding the attack on the nuclear plant, let me make sure I give you the name and the spelling again. I should give you the spelling. That would be nice, wouldn't it? The name of the plant is spelled Zaporizhzhia. I see that as Zaporizhzhia. It is near the town of Enerhodar. Enerhodar. The calls for a 30-mile perimeter and a safe zone to allow firefighters, emergency services, etc. seems to have been a bit of overreach when, again, we are seeing nothing off the seismometer, wrong word. Geiger counters. We are not seeing anything off the Geiger counters to suggest that there's been an event of a nuclear meltdown, of a nuclear leak like 3 Mile Island, or an explosion like Daiichi. That is as of 8:18 a.m. Ukrainian time, which is a lie. It's approximately 30 minutes ago because I sat down, I was going to have a Coke and a smoke, and then and I'm still, okay. It's enough. The day is almost over. And this ridiculous thing can come off. My arms are on fire. Another broadcast friend of mine, they try to explain it, and the itchies and the marks and the burning, and they think it's funny. And but it's because of the smoking. When I say my arms are on fire, they somehow see flames coming off them. I don't find that funny either. Um, to the cameras at I said I was going to do the name. I should start learning to say it. Zaporizhzhia. No. Zapor. I had it before. Zaporizhzhia. Um, the cameras were on for approximately 4 hours. They don't do a continuous stream. The plant doesn't normally stream for everyday events. And in the time at which the stream ran and the cut was made, and again, approximately 30 minutes ago, there was already 1,000,000+ views on that site. I still hold off judgment and wait, and let's see where the data points go for a Take Out the Trash Friday, because it is now Friday morning in Ukraine, Friday morning in Moscow. We've seen a lot of daytime shelling. We've seen daytime incursions. I don't expect that to change today. I think today is going to be a fluid day. And again, the media continued for a week that Ukraine had fallen, Kyiv had fallen, Kyiv is falling, Kharkiv is falling, Odessa's falling. I don't see that. I just don't see that in the cards right now. I see Putin being a continued unchallenged, demonized, great, call me all the names you want. And this threat that, look, if you get involved, you are going to reap consequences that you can't even imagine. Based upon the mindless behavior of our dignitaries right now in these condemnations, and anyone calling for a no-fly zone does not understand or has been educated in Sun Tzu, The Art of War, or the U.S. Army War College. A no-fly zone is retarded. Absolutely retarded to be calling for. It is you are inviting disaster, calling for a technical world war, because how many countries in NATO? And the claim of we will defend every square inch of all now. Okay, well, if we're going to start talking then about the fair share of what Americans should pay, then every member of NATO does not need to pay their fair share. They have to pay their agreed share. 2% of their GDP needs to immediately go into the fund for the NATO defense, because this continued nonsense of a talking point one direction versus the other and thinking that people are just that retarded. Yeah, well, they are that retarded, but hopefully with more and more messages like this and you hearing and seeing this, and 14 people now say that the Federal Reserve isn't a federal part of the government. Maybe I should look that up. I really question if the Federal Reserve is going to announce tomorrow, and I don't know how they get away with it next week. We may actually see the Ides of March for the Federal Reserve. We've known that they are going to raise rates. They are going to do that in March. They are most likely going to raise the rates no less than 0.25% and maybe perhaps a half a point. This will devastate an already fractured economy globally, just as the continued closures of the Russian stock market are now having global effects that nobody was really thinking through. And again, calls for Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, Google, Facebook, RT, shut them all down. Well, is this a logistical problem in the fact that the GPS and the soldiers can't use it? We're not getting straight answers. And the media is doing a lot of misdirecting, all about the children and the women and the courage and the heroes and the need for, democracy and diversity, and wow. It's a little scary out there in the wilderness. You can only negotiate from a point of strength, not of weakness. And if nothing else, In Afghanistan, America showed it's weak. The world paid heed. Putin paid heed when President Joe Biden said that depending upon the events of Putin in the Ukraine and whether it was a small incursion, that immediately gave the go ahead. We are weak. That's what that statement says. And now learning that Russia and China not only were sharing intelligence from the West, but that Putin and Xi did have a conversation. It did revolve around the invasion, and it did revolve around the Olympics. And I predicted that in December and January on the Conspiracy Keepers with Joe Lanier, with Backlash LaRue, and with Jackie Selby. Now it's 3334 of 2022. Holy Joe, don't you think? Well, I think they did. I think the two of them. I don't think the handler. I think the two of them. They did. When we think we know, we're probably right. This nonsense, well, I saw it and it must not. You're being programmed. When you know in the back of your guy, nah, something isn't right. This makes sense. That doesn't. Follow Occam's razor. Don't believe what we, and again, we take out the trash news. Boy, are they going to be banging the drums of war on the Sunday talk shows. Threats of nuclear annihilation, threats of nuclear accidents. How dare he target a nuclear facility? I don't believe he did. I don't believe the Russian army did. I question the sudden popping up of the stream and then the downing of the stream. And then here's the clip, and there we go, and here you go. I question the other social media of people who have not been, on this platform for however long or how many posts, and suddenly they have breaking news when other sources can't confirm it, especially when you claim they're there and 12 other people are claiming in other portions of the city. We're not seeing that. See, that's a 12-1, kind of a tactical advantage, as is the reports continuing out of the Ukraine, the number dead versus the number of Russians dead. And where Russia goes now that the Russian Federation has had their meeting regarding, heightening their security inside their homeland, continued protests in St. Petersburg, in Leningrad, and in Moscow, as well as other cities that no one knows how to pronounce. Thousands and tens of thousands of people are now out in the streets. And were again last night. Moscow, Leningrad, St. Petersburg, and again other cities. This is huge. Berlin, London, Tokyo, Sydney. I know. Denver. Denver showed us solidarity, and we're going to do it again this weekend, and we're going to wear flags, and we're going to have our man buns up. I know. The delusion regarding Russian vodka. I know, my friend. I told you I'd get to you. This nonsense. Hey, all of you throwing it out and boycotting it and banning it and destroying it. We don't want to talk about people's mental health, and we don't want to talk about their physical well-being. It's all COVID all the time. The problem is alcoholism. Most alcoholics eventually go to this stuff. And the problem is, with continued escalation of prices and all the allegations of supply chain issues and record inflation and the dollar continuing to tank, what happens when all the alcoholics can't get their regular vodka? You think people are going nuts now being told there is no more mask mandate? In the wake of the United Nations climate change report and the dire threats to our global climate system if we don't act immediately, another report coming out, California, stand by. The big one, there's a 50-50 chance it's right on the horizon. I bring that up because of the 1970, and I encourage all of you to go find this, believe it or not, on Russian social media. The 1974 movie Earthquake. Google Earthquake full movie OK.ru. Victoria Principal in an afro in leather. What? A man can dream. Um, I want you to rewatch that movie because from the Planet of the Apes, Earthquake, and do a little deep dive into Earthquake about that movie, how it was shown in movie theaters, what was special about the movie theater you went to go see the movie Earthquake. Earthquake, The Towering Inferno, The Poseidon Adventure, and Planet of the Apes. Those four movies, I can give you very good. Now, remember when these were? These are the pre-blockbuster Jaws, Star Wars movies. They are not all Irwin Allen productions. The Towering Inferno and The Poseidon Adventure are. I don't remember if Earthquake was. And The Planet of the Apes is The Planet of the Apes. 1974 Earthquake, Charlton Heston, Lauren Green, and Victoria Principal. Ah! What? Weren't we all young once? Young youth is wasted on the young, but it was not on Victoria Principal. I'm just saying. I know everybody, brunettes and blondes and no. The Dill Bar has, of course, now made international acclaim and international news. The $600 million, 512-foot mega yacht. I almost said super yacht. Mega yacht, because Jeff Bezos has the super yacht, was seized in Hamburg. That's Germany, one of Germany's ports. The Western media is touting the fact that we were able to act so swiftly and start seizing Russian oligarchs' assets, shows the West's resolve. The ship was in port. It was getting work done. They couldn't fire it up and take it out of the harbor if they wanted to. Senior intelligence officials somehow don't seem to disclose this, even though that's the fact. The yacht is not that old. It took a year to make. It's $600 million. It needed to be why? Because the owner wants something else. What's he going to retrofit it with? His own submarine? It doesn't matter. The reason the ship was in port was because it was being retrofitted. That somehow didn't make the Daily Mail and the Guardian and the Washington Post and the New York Times and the LA Times. They wanted to tout American might and bullying and shaming and seizing assets. It is the DILBAR is the name of the vessel. It was seized in Hamburg, and you can go on the internet and go to the port and go to the companies and see what its status was. And there it is. Well, I get what, they lost the keys. No, they didn't lose the keys. Yeah, Google Dilbar. D-I-L, not Dilbert, Dilbar. No, ladies, not the, well, you can go Google those later, but Dilbar. The four Russian fighters that violated Swedish airspace. I pointed that out the other night, and I thought that headline was interesting as a data point. And specifically, I asked on air, nobody seems to be asking how often does that happen, and with what frequency? Because we think, Korean Airlines Flight 007. Does anybody want to bring that one up? Commercial and military air traffic things happen, all right? And it can be so much as an accelerated tailwind and a pilot not paying attention and deviating off course to something far sinister, far more sinister. However, what they failed to report in the initial encounters was that Sweden was engaged with Finland in military exercises. See, that's kind of important to put that in the headline. And then the Russians came looking and, oh, we're a little, whoa, we stepped over. Or, oh, you're up here, fire. Oh, you want, we'll come take a look, good look at you, comrade. So they immediately hyped it, didn't give it enough attention, and now it potentially is a story worthy of attention. Wait a minute. Sweden and Finland, many countries right now are conducting military exercises. The U.S. just announcing, hey, we were going to test something, and we figured out of an abundance of caution it would be wise not to do that. I am sick of that phrase, the abundance of caution. This is a term now being used by the Western oligarchs who are nothing but a bunch of wussies. A bunch of beta male metrosexual man bun wearing, caged ear, tattooed, pierced, bi, poly, pan, demi, worthless. Worthless. The latest talking point in the West, after we've had some behavioral experts on and some psychologists to take a look at Vladimir Putin's mental profile, out of the BBC, that Vladimir Putin is showing aggressions that no one in this world can understand when it comes to using terms like he's out of control, he's crazy, he's a madman. Here it comes. It's very aggressive. But in fact, isn't there a little Putin in all of us? What the? Did you just say? You're a little, is there? And again, I joked with the conspiracy keepers. I want that t-shirt. There's a little Putin in all of us. Oh, your aggression is bad. You're not lisping enough. You're not boosted enough. You're not doing enough. You're not boycotting enough. You're not virtue signaling enough. Yeah, I said we were going to do headlines, and this is not headlines. The Pentagon says that the Russian convoy is stalled. I don't believe so. I believe it is there for a very specific reason. Unless it has been sabotaged. See, you want to show us, hey, guess what? By the way, Belarus, don't worry, they're my Azerbaijan. Nobody talking about them. What about the deal we made there? And this nonsense, if the Russians take Odessa, well, the deal with Belarus now extends the border up to the Baltic. Especially if they do get Kharkiv and Kiev. Then that establishes a central corridor. That's the game. That means he can sit there for a year and a half or 2 years and play out his hand. Doesn't have to do anything. So continued calls for airstrikes and surveillance and more. Well, these will just now be seen as aggressive moves, and you started the war, not Vladimir Putin. But we declared you a war criminal. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. By the way, the sanctions are not hurting Putin. They are crushing the Russian people at an economic rate and an exponential rate that the West and economists could not have seen coming. I don't believe that either. By the way, if you're watching this and you have Russian rubles, I know they're only worth 1 to the dollar. I'll pay 3. Just get a hold of me in the messaging thing and tell me what parking lot you want to meet in Colorado, and I'll buy your rubles. Hold on to them. Hold on for the ride. Again, reports in the West, the fact that the Russian-controlled state-run media and the Russian government were denying any casualties in the first week of the Russian incursion into Ukraine, which were still being called military exercises. Now they're calling it a war. No, they're calling it an invasion. They're wanting war. The confirmed killing of 498 Russian forces. Don't see the women in the media curious as to how many of those were women. The ghost of Ukraine. The ghost was a ghost. Thank God I didn't think, again, the comment on the conspiracy keepers is, if what we're hearing is true, if they are real, my bet is it's Israeli, and the pilot is Israeli, and if it's between the IDF and Mossad, I say he's Mossad. And I pointed out he's he because whoever gave birth to this pilot did not have testicles, and the pilot does. The pilot was a hoax. However, the hoaxster responsible for the ghost of Kiev, the Ukraine, excuse me, in fact has testicles. So if the creator of the ghost is the ghost, well, I was still right. It was a guy. Sorry, ladies. You're not going to be that into it to be able to sit at a keyboard and simulate being a fighter pilot. I know you went to the Colorado and you went through the training, and I know. I thank you, Lieutenant. Now go file some paperwork. No. The person who hoaxed the ghost of Ukraine turns out to be an internet hoaxer, and their gender is male. So get over yourself. You're not hurt. I'm not apologizing. I'll apologize when I'm wrong, not because you're hurt. If you're hurt, it sucks to be you to have a device that so quickly lets you get on any platform and be hurt. You need mental help. Headlines. I know, not a rant. Massive shift in social media and people's attitudes for calling for a no-fly zone and calling for even further sanctions on Putin. The sanctions on Putin are crushing the Russian people. I fear here in the West, in the United States, everything from the Russian tea room in New York City to every Russian small business and Russian family in the United States, give it a week. And if you thought people were getting in your face and yelling at you because you didn't have a mask on, you ain't seen nothing yet. And speaking of the masks and the mandates and the boosters and the economy and the recession and the vodka, now that spring is coming and we're exiting the dark winter, stand by, ladies and gentlemen. You thought the protests of 2020 and the Antifa and Black Lives Matter and the insurrection of 2021, excuse me, you ain't seen nothing yet. I hope I'm wrong. Super yachts. Again, there has been reports of a nuclear accident and a nuclear attack and attacks on a nuclear facility in Enerhoder at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The mayor of the town pointing out that the fire is going to be dealt with, that there was shelling, but there has not been a nuclear accident. The IAEA is reporting no spike in radiation levels. The fire is either in a training building or an administrative building, not the reactor. So the media's reports of concerns that a nuclear meltdown could take place are fake. They are the media reporting idiots on social media who are voicing concerns so they can claim that, well, this is where my source was. It's better than Bobo the chimp. And again, the big story is it is confirmed that Russia and China did in fact have and conducted intelligence talks and briefed each other regarding Vladimir Putin's invasion into Beijing, Vladimir Putin's invasion into the Ukraine, and so as not to disrupt or dishonor President Xi, that the timing, not suspicious to the ending of the Olympics, it was deliberate, it was planned. So Whether my third eye is dialed into evil and I can just see it coming, I'm not taking a lap and a credit for this one. I say that because they're using the playbook, the textbook for how to do this. There were how many hundreds of millions of simulations during the Cold War, and they break down to a half a dozen when it comes to a Russian transgression to the West. Regarding tanks, regarding armed forces, regarding strategic warfare, chemical warfare, biological warfare, electronic and cyber warfare, and tactical nuclear weapons. I wish you well. I wish you peace. I wish you don't believe a word I say. I wish that you will go research all of this for yourself. And I wish for you to subscribe and like and smash and do all the things you're supposed to do on the internet. Share it with your friends. If you see the story, and send me the link. I'll double check it and I'll get it out there and I'll give credit to where it's coming from. Be well, be safe. I'll see you on Twitter at the Scooter McGee, Facebook Scooter McGee, YouTube. You're here. Subscribe. You won't miss it again. And thanks for your support if you're bringing it on to Patreon, Scooter McGee. Good night. Well, you're out. All right. Good night, everybody. Be well. See you tomorrow night, 1 a.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Mountain.